As the sun set on his presidency, Joe Biden offered a stark warning. America, he declared, faced a grave threat from within, the rise of an oligarchy. No longer a nation of, by and for the people, we were in danger of becoming a nation ruled by a wealthy few. His words, delivered with the weight of experience and the urgency of a ticking clock, echoed through a nation already deeply divided. Biden's farewell address was not a celebration of victory, but a call to arms. He spoke of billionaires flocking to Mar-a-Lago not for lavish parties, but for something far more insidious, to consolidate their power and tighten their grip on the levers of government. He warned of a tech-industrial complex, a modern-day behemoth with the potential to rival the military-industrial complex that President Eisenhower had cautioned against decades earlier. This was not hyperbole, but a cold assessment of the reality unfolding before our eyes. Elon Musk, the enigmatic CEO of Tesla and SpaceX, had become a close confidant of Donald Trump, using his vast wealth and influence to advance an agenda that served his interests. Jeff Bezos, the founder of Amazon, and Mark Zuckerberg, the architect of Facebook, had also drawn closer to the former president, their motives shrouded in secrecy. Biden's warning was not simply a parting shot from a lame duck president, it was a clarion call. A desperate plea for Americans to wake up and recognize the peril we faced. The American experiment, once a beacon of hope for the world, was teetering on the brink. The concept of oligarchy is not new. It is in fact one of the oldest forms of government, dating back to ancient Greece. Oligarchies arise when wealth, power, and influence are concentrated in the hands of a small, elite group. This group, often united by shared economic interests and a sense of entitlement, uses its power to rig the system in its favor, manipulating laws, policies, and institutions to maintain its privileged position. Throughout American history, there have been periods when the influence of wealthy elites has grown to alarming levels. The Gilded Age of the late 19th century, with its robber barons and opulent excess, stands as a stark reminder of the dangers of unchecked greed. But never before has the concentration of wealth and power reached the levels we see today. The rise of globalization, the decline of unions, and the explosion of executive compensation have created a chasm of inequality unseen since the Great Depression. A tiny fraction of the population now controls a staggering share of the nation's wealth, while millions struggle to make ends meet. This economic disparity has translated into a dangerous imbalance of political power. The Supreme Court's Citizens United decision, which opened the floodgates to unlimited corporate spending in elections, has further empowered wealthy individuals and special interests. Politicians, beholden to their deep-pocketed donors, prioritize the needs of the few over the many, enacting policies that exacerbate inequality and undermine the common good. Biden's warning about an emerging oligarchy in America drew uncomfortable parallels to Russia, a nation where a small coterie of billionaires, many with close ties to President Vladimir Putin, exert outsized influence over the government. These oligarchs, enriched by their control of Russia's vast natural resources, operate with impunity, their wealth and power shielding them from accountability. The parallels between Russia and the United States are not perfect, of course. America, despite its flaws, remains a democracy, with a long tradition of free speech, a free press, and the rule of law. But the warning signs are undeniable. The growing coziness between American billionaires and elected officials, the increasing influence of money in politics, and the erosion of democratic norms all point to a troubling trend. If left unchecked, this trend could transform America from a beacon of democracy into something far more sinister. The rise of an American oligarchy has profound implications for the future of our nation. Perhaps no group is more vulnerable to the predations of a wealthy and powerful elite than the very people who flock to Donald Trump's populist banner, working-class Americans who feel left behind by globalization, abandoned by their leaders, and ignored by the political establishment. These are the Americans who cheered Trump's promises to drain the swamp and put America first. They are the ones who yearn for a return to a bygone era when America was a manufacturing powerhouse and a good-paying job was a ticket to the middle class. They are also the ones most likely to be harmed by the policies of an oligarchic government. Oligarchs, by their very nature, are concerned with preserving and enhancing their own wealth and power. They have little interest in the needs of the working class, and their policies often reflect this indifference. Tax cuts for the wealthy, deregulation of corporations, and cuts to social programs all disproportionately benefit the rich while leaving working families struggling to stay afloat. The irony is that many of Trump's most ardent supporters are blind to the threat posed by an American oligarchy. They have been led to believe that their economic anxieties are the result of immigration, globalization, and liberal elites, when in reality the true threat comes from the very people Trump has embraced, the billionaires and corporate CEOs who are rigging the system in their favor. Section 5. The Constitution's Hour of Peril. The rise of an American oligarchy poses a fundamental threat to the very fabric of our democracy. The U.S. Constitution, the document that has served as the bedrock of our nation for over 2 centuries, is under assault as never before. This assault is not a frontal attack, but a slow, insidious erosion of the principles that make America unique. The Constitution was designed to prevent the concentration of power in the hands of a few. The Founding Fathers, having just overthrown a monarchy, understood the dangers of unchecked authority. They created a system of checks and balances, dividing power between the executive, legislative, and judicial branches, and enshrining the rights of individuals in the Bill of Rights. The oligarchic forces at work in America today are actively undermining these safeguards. They are using their wealth and influence to buy elections, corrupt politicians, and shape public opinion. They are stacking the courts with judges who favor corporate interests over the rights of individuals. And they are eroding public trust in government, making it easier to dismantle the very institutions that protect our freedoms. The Constitution, while a resilient document, is not self-enforcing. It relies on the vigilance of citizens and the integrity of elected officials to uphold its principles. When those entrusted with power put their own interests above those of the nation, the Constitution, like any other piece of parchment, becomes meaningless. Section 6. A Call to Action. In his farewell address, Biden did not merely warn of the dangers facing America, he also offered a series of concrete solutions to address them. These proposals, though ambitious, were rooted in a deep understanding of the systemic problems plaguing our nation. Biden called for a constitutional amendment to end presidential immunity, arguing that no one, not even the president, should be above the law. He urged Congress to enact comprehensive campaign finance reform, limiting the influence of money in politics and returning power to the hands of ordinary citizens. He proposed a ban on congressional stock trading, a practice that has allowed some members of Congress to enrich themselves at the expense of their constituents. To address the growing economic inequality that fuels the rise of oligarchy, Biden called for significant changes to the tax code, ensuring that billionaires and corporations pay their fair share. He proposed an 18-year term limit for Supreme Court justices, arguing that lifetime appointments had led to a court out of touch with the needs of the American people. These proposals, though, met with predictable resistance from Republicans and their wealthy donors, represented a bold vision for a more just and equitable America. They were a recognition that the status quo was unsustainable, that the concentration of wealth and power in the hands of a few threatened the very foundations of our democracy. Section 7. Can we bridge the chasm? Biden's farewell address, while a powerful indictment of the forces threatening America, also offered a glimmer of hope. He reminded Americans that we have faced down challenges before, that our nation has always been at its best when we have come together to address our common problems. He spoke of the need to bridge the partisan divide that has paralyzed our politics, to find common ground on issues such as healthcare, education, and climate change. He called for a return to civility and reasoned discourse, urging Americans to reject the politics of division and fear that have become all too common. These were not empty platitudes, but a recognition that our nation's future depends on our ability to heal the wounds of division, to find common purpose in our shared humanity. The challenges we face are too great, the stakes too high for anything less. Section 8. A Legacy in the Balance. As Biden left the stage, his words hung in the air, a stark reminder of the unfinished business of his presidency and the challenges that lie ahead for our nation. His legacy, like that of all presidents, will be debated for years to come. But one thing is certain: Biden, in his twilight hours as president, had the courage to speak truth to power, to shine a light on the dark forces threatening to unravel the American experiment. He understood that the preservation of our democracy depends not on the whims of fate, but on the active engagement of an informed and vigilant citizenry. History will judge whether we heeded his warning. Section 9. Our choice, our future. The choice before us is clear. We can continue down the path of oligarchy, allowing a wealthy and powerful elite to consolidate its grip on our government and our lives. Or we can choose to fight back, to reclaim our democracy, and to build a more just and equitable society for all Americans. This will not be easy. The forces arrayed against us are powerful and entrenched, but as Biden reminded us, America has never shied away from a challenge. We are a nation founded on the belief that all people are created equal, endowed with certain unalienable rights, including the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. These ideals are not mere words on a page. They are the guiding principles of our nation, the very soul of our democracy. It is up to us, the citizens of this great nation, to ensure that they endure. The time for complacency is over. The time for action is now. Let us answer Biden's call, not with despair, but with a renewed commitment to the ideals that have always made America great. Let us build a future worthy of our past, a future where government of, by, and for the people shall not perish from this earth.